more intelligent than Fellaini was as a player in United or when he was in Everton. But yeah, overall he was. Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Training121 PODCAST. Something a little bit different today. So we're all stuck in our own homes, although the two lads are in the same house. They've opted for separate cameras, which is a bit erratic, but you love to see it. So today we're going to be talking about our Premier League predictions, which we've done how long ago?
I think it was episode 5, maybe. So
Premier League, yeah. So okay, so we're going to do a quick recap on where we are up to now. So a couple of controversial comments were made at the start, especially about my predictions. So I'm happy to address them now, as we're in February, just at the start of February, or a week into February. And also we're going to talk about a couple of little things to do with VAR and some opinions we have on recent events. So, Daly, are you going to pull up the current table there just to have a quick look?
Yeah.
I have mine in front of me.
I'll pull it up here. So this is the current one off the Premier League website. Obviously, some teams have played 21, 22, 23 games. But, yeah, me and Morgan with the United shout being... I think I had them third, did I? I had them fourth. And you had them third.
I had them third. Yes. Oh, silly old me. Let's write off United. How about that? Gee, let's write off United. How about that?
G with the show.
I think it just goes to show you how past performance doesn't show future performance in any walk of life. I think that's kind of like a good message to players as well. Like, just because you had a bad year doesn't mean you don't need to, or you're going to have a bad year next year. Same with clubs. Who knows what's in the future? I think you need to look a lot more internally into clubs' values and structures to kind of make an opinion of where they're going to be next year rather than past performance. So you got a little bit of bias too.
Giddy up. Get out of it.
What other ones that we have really far off? Like, I had West Ham to finish 17th and they're 5th at the minute.
I had West Ham 18th and Villa 17th. They're two terrible shouts. Awful. So far off.
I'd Villa 18th as well, yeah.
How they've done this year is very surprising, but they've been quite consistent, to be fair. Now they're going through a bad run of form now. They're struggling a little bit to get results, but still where they are now is just a credit to how good they started the year. Same with West Ham, obviously. They're doing very, very well. Difficult team to play against. I know Liverpool killed them there the other day, but that's quite rare for them this year. They're quite defensively sound. They're just a consistent team. Difficult to break down. Suchek is a great player for breaking lines and stuff. He's really good in the air as well. Those types of players, when you recruit, they recruit really well because he's a great player to sign. Very diverse in terms of defensively and offensively. He reminds me, and they say it quite a lot in Sky Sports, that he's a bit like Fellaini from a defensive and an offensive point of view. He's probably... I'd say he's a little bit more intelligent than Fellaini was as a player in United or when he was in Everton. But yeah, overall he's a great signing.
I thought, gee, it just ran away for a minute.
I was just about to say.
I thought, sorry, just for the
Was it just recording?
Obviously I did, but I thought you said that when it's recording virtually that it's going to be on the person that that the spotlight's on.
We literally just discussed 5 seconds before. Disclaimer to everyone watching. 5 seconds before we started. Yeah, gallery view or speaker view? We'll go gallery so they can see everyone.
Just give me a break, will you?
You never fail to make us laugh.
I tell you what, for some of this stuff, like that sort of stuff, I am clueless. Honestly, that's why there's 3 of us and not one.
I honestly just thought you were gone for a minute or two.
As I was speaking, I seen him get up, and you know what? It did not surprise me in the slightest. That's why I didn't even mention anything until Daly started going.
Honestly, right.
Back on track. One thing that actually I made the show, I think Daly, you did as well. We had City to win the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. City started really poorly and it did not look good. Now, this is a thing, I think, with the media. As soon as a team, like same with United at the moment, United were unbelievable for maybe 15, 16 games. You go through a slight blip and everyone's like, nah, why did anyone think they were going to be title contenders? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. It's just all this like media. It doesn't make any sense to me at all that they could just rule them out like that by 1 or 2 games. Now, it's getting closer and closer to the end of the year. So I understand, like today, Liverpool and City are playing right now. And they're saying if Liverpool don't win, you may as well write them off. I think that's nonsense as well. Like it's changing very, very quickly. The points tallies aren't huge. No one's massively ahead of anyone at this stage. So I think in terms of form, everyone's going like this. It's not consistent at all this year. It's a very weird year of football, especially in the Premier League. So I think it can go basically anyway. I think in terms of the overall package, I know Brian is out now, Aguero's been out all year. I still think City are they're definitely the hottest at the moment, but I think they will be definitely still probably at the peak at the end of the year, and I think that's a good shout for City to win the league. Now, I had Liverpool second as well, so at the moment, yes, you can debate form-wise they're not doing great. They have a lot of injuries. There's a lot of other little things going on within the club, it seems, but still, I'm absolutely not ruling them out. They are still playing extremely well for the lack of quality that they have, especially confidence-wise in forward areas. So it's very difficult to predict, especially the top 4. Maybe the top 3, we have a decent idea. I do think United will be in there, but the top 4 to 6, no idea.
It's interesting. I think this is United's best chance to win the league, and it will be for the next couple of years. The lack of fans has almost like, I don't want to say killed Liverpool, but the whole thing with Anfield and the home crowd and all this, and that's why I think why we're seeing these ridiculous results and these teams start doing a lot better than they probably should, like Villa's. It's the idea of it actually, when we go back to having crowds and these teams start faltering a little bit, it'll actually remind everyone how good the top players are, that they can play under the pressure. Whereas when there's not as much pressure, when there's no fans, you're seeing like essentially a worse standard, not even worse standard. You're seeing the lower teams performing at a higher standard than they normally would than they would if they were under the pressure of a home crowd, if it's like a Villa away to Liverpool. But yeah, so I think if United want to win the league in the next 3 to 4 years, I think now is the time. I think that Liverpool are rocking a bit and they've had a lot of injuries. The only issue is City are cooking right now. They've literally just breezing past every team. I think they're unbeaten in or they've won, is it 8 or 9 or 10 games in a row at the minute, or some ridiculous winning stat in a row. So I think it's time is now if they want it.
I think I have my list here in front of me, and I think if you split the league into 4 quarters of 5, I think that's kind of how I'm going to look at my basis. So my top 5 are Liverpool first, Man City second, Chelsea third, Spurs fourth, Arsenal fifth, which I think was a very positive looking outlook for those teams. So, for example, those 5 I picked on the basis of Liverpool signing Thiago and continuing their form from last year. Obviously, you can't predict injuries and stuff like that. So I think they were kind of like a worthy shout for first. Again, Man City, consistency-wise, and the players they have and the quality in staff and players is a worthy second. If you look at Chelsea on paper, from the players they brought in at the start of the year, and even with kind of what I was hoping for was more of a club culture and a push towards like Frank Lampard bringing in like more of a home ethos in regards to Chelsea values and a long-term project, but which unfortunately it didn't work out. So I think where my predictions came from the top 5 were kind of an outlook on more of the positive side rather than the pragmatic sides of what could happen. And unfortunately, a lot of them kind of went by the wayside. Chelsea, for example, struggled early, continued to struggle. Arsenal, I had as 5th. Again, really, really poor start and are scrambling to get any sort of points. But again, I'll take the hits on those 2. I still have Liverpool, Man City and Spurs in and around the top 4. Under that then, I had, Arsenal 5th, Leicester 6th, United 7th, Everton 8th, Leeds 9th and Wolves 10th. I I think Leeds and Wolves were good shouts for those positions. I think Wolves obviously have struggled a little bit more than what I thought they would. And Everton as well in 8th position. I think they'll probably finish there, from being honest, from what I'm looking at the minute. To be fair, I thought they were, as Gary said, a little bit naive last night with how they set up against Manchester United and bits like that. But they still have the quality to come back and score 3. So I wouldn't be writing them off in regards to European spots. I think even communally as well, the bottom tier as well, if you want to split it into 4 quarters, I'd Fulham last, West Brom second last. They're both there and abouts to be relegated. And then I also had Sheffield United, which, to be fair, I think me and Gary had the same idea of that second season kind of flutter when a good system does well for a year and then really struggles to pay dividends in the second year. And I think that's kind of evident now this year with Sheffield United. I didn't think it'd be that, what's the word I'm looking for? Catastrophic. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be that catastrophic now, for being honest. I had... Say again?
Did you put Sheffield United 18th?
No, 16th.
I had them 14th, yeah. I was thinking if you put them 18th, that was some show.
I had Aston Villa and West Ham. So I had Fulham last in 20th, West Brom 19th, Aston Villa in 18th, and West Ham in 17th. So 17 and 18 were poor shouts. But again, as you were saying, Morgan, you made really good points there about West Ham. And again, I think it just goes to show you why Manchester United hired David Moyes. There is a good quality manager there in regards to how he obviously picks teams, starts correctly, and knows the league inside out. I'm actually very happy for David Moyes, if being honest. West Ham could be a big club. I think Leicester and West Ham, out of all the clubs in the Premier League, and Leeds United, probably have the infrastructure, the area, facilities, resources to compete with the top 4, try and get some sort of slice of the pie. So Leicester have kind of attained that with a league title in the last few years. West Ham, probably their time now to really crack on.
I think.
What do we think about Southampton?
I had them 13th and they're 12th. So I'll take that.
I had 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not that far off, I suppose. Again, Newcastle disappointed me again. But I remember when I was 7 years of age and Newcastle were disappointing me, like for what they could have been. I remember saying to my dad and stuff, like St. James's Park, like at the time had more people, they could fit more people in it than Anfield. I was like, they got relegated. Like, what is going on there? It must be a shambles.
Bring back Santi.
You talking about that film Goal?
Yeah.
Of course.
That film.
That game with Fulham.
I think probably before we move on to the VAR stuff, I think we'll put up on the screen, we'll tot up how far we are off our correct position. Probably should have done that going into it, but see who's leading the score at this stage. So we'll see who's the most points off. So obviously, just to reiterate, if no score wins, so whoever gets it as accurate as possible. But we'll have to pop that up on the screen. Will we go?
Harry, can you pull the league table up again, please?
There you go.
And can we just go just a quick snapshot again, just go by what we have currently. So everybody call it their first, their second, and their third, just all the way down.
So do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I had Liverpool first, which are 4th, so I'm 3 points off the minute. Man City, I had second, 1 point off. Chelsea third, good bit off there. They're in 8th position at the minute. And then I had Spurs in 4th. So I'm kind of like, if you go by those 4 clubs there, I'm roughly about 2 points off each, or 2 positions with our scoring system.
Yeah.
Go to their top 4.
Who did I have? I had City, so I'm bang on with that. I had Liverpool then second, so what's that, 3 points off. Chelsea third, so 5 points off, and then I had United 4th, 2 points off. So not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah.
What did you have, Morgan?
Yeah, so I'd City first, Liverpool second, I had United third, and Chelsea 4th.
Okay.
So it's the ones that are surprising. I think what Gary was saying earlier, in a normal season, our predictions I think are good, but in the way the season is currently going, and with no fans, all the COVID restrictions and stuff, it's a very weird year. So teams such as the likes of Villa performing very well, and Everton and West Ham probably outdoing what they should be doing, and Leicester again doesn't surprise me, but they're having a great year again. I don't think, well, Leicester maybe, but the likes of West Ham, Everton, even Arsenal dropping so far, maybe not. That doesn't happen in a normal year with normal football going on. So especially with the introduction of, which we're going to talk about, VAR and all the type of stuff, the amount of decisions that are now in the early stages of being questioned, because it's a new technology. So there's a lot of decisions that probably in 2 or 3 years down the line, if it continues, just won't be, definitely won't be given.
Yeah. You want to knock into some of the VAR stuff then? You had a couple of scenarios to address.
I'll go through a couple of scenarios. So I've got real issues with some of the recent ones. I'm gonna talk about the United one first. I don't think anyone's talking about it. Me and Daddy were talking about this earlier. It's a strange one because United against Sheffield United, you had Billy Sharp's push on De Gea that was so blatantly a foul. It's unbelievable, and it just wasn't talked about. It was like, I think on Sky, I think I was watching on, they're like, I can't listen to him. Just move on to the next goal. That was it. It's such a terrible decision by VAR to not give it as clear and obvious. No intentions for the ball. Clearly leans into him. Now, De Gea still should have done better, but it's blatantly a foul. But the issue with that is, fair enough, it happens. Half an hour later, Harry Maguire challenges Ramsdale, who's a bang average goalkeeper. He fluffs his lines. Maguire just, now, whatever. If it's a foul, it's a foul. Martial catches it on the volley. Clearly, if you're going to give one as a foul, you have to give the other. But the ref blows the whistle before the ball hits the back of the net, and he just completely outdoes all VAR, and they can't go back and check it. That is ridiculous refereeing. Mm-hmm. So the debate is like, well, I think that the ruling of that makes sense, but the idea of that they don't let both of them flow, let both of them hit the back of the net and then check VAR to then make the decision makes no sense. Now, like the debate for me and Daddy were talking about earlier, one's a foul, the other one probably isn't a foul, but if you're going to give one as not a foul, the other one's not a foul as well. So you can't just pick and choose which is which. And I know you could go into debate of one being a little bit more of a foul and the other one, it's kind of subjective, but it's one or the other. It's both fouls or no fouls. So that is very frustrating as a United fan, for one to happen literally, and then 20, 30 minutes later, the exact same thing happens, probably the blatantly softer, and they let it run and they give a foul. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So that infuriated me as a United fan.
And the issue though fans have is they're blaming VAR for the decision, whereas that's the ref for example, the United were not letting the play go on. And actually, I have a question for you, so I don't think I know your opinions on this. So you know the way they play on when someone goes through now, even though they can be a couple of yards offside, and a lot of people are kind of going crazy saying, well, what happens if the recovering defender lunges at them last minute to nick the ball and injures them, and then the linesman's flag goes up and they pull it back and he was offside, but someone's after getting injured? I think Rashford against Leicester went through. He was like 3 yards offside. Linesman didn't put the flag because he's not being... Now, again, everyone's blaming the linesman, but he's being told not to do that until the play is finished. And then I think whoever it was came back and lunged a tackle and like nicked Rashford. So he could have gotten an injury from it. So I don't know what... do you want to say your thoughts on something like that? What you're thinking?
It's just the lack of clarity. Like I think with any sort of like big organization like the Premier League where there's big money involved, decision making is so goddamn slow, and people know the faults, and they just it's so frustrating. It's soul destroying. And even just that example that you had there, I don't see the logical point in allowing play to go. Like if he's offside, he's offside. Just put the flag up. And if, for example, it's a tight call and Rashford puts the ball in the back of the net, then go back to the camera. But the principle of VAR, I love. Like the amount of games I remember seeing when I was younger where teams got robbed, and like that could be the difference between one player finishing their career with a Champions League medal or not. Like, these decisions really matter, and particularly at the highest level of sports. It's not VAR that's the issue. It is the lack of consistency with the rules and the unsurety. I don't know if that's a word, but just the lack of cohesion in regards to the rules. Like, I don't even know what the handball rules are anymore. Like, I think they've changed like 3 times in the past year, or 2 years, sorry. So, rules are rules. Everybody knows what rules should be. It should be a blank book that's non-negotiable. Just blank rules on it, that's it. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. And there isn't that at all. And I don't agree with people saying like VAR is ruining football. Clearly isn't. No. It's making better, the whole objective of it is to make better decisions at better times to make sure that the rightful winner wins the game. I don't see any issue with that at all. But the cohesion in regards to the rules and what VAR is actually trying to referee is miles away from where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think the implementation of technology has very much exposed the rules of football and how almost not wrong, because most of the ruling is fine. It's the debatable ones that are the issue. So yeah, like that with the handball rule. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what a handball is anymore. I don't know what they give it for, because I wouldn't mind if it was consistent across the board. And the important point you made there about VAR, the technology itself is not the issue. That is not the issue. You do forget, it's like this, what we're doing right now. We would, if we were in the VAR room, we are humans looking at a screen and making a decision based off the rules. Now, it's either the people are wrong that are making the decisions or the rules are wrong, because the technology is not the issue. The whole implementation definitely can be better. So like you said there, it's very slow. When it's clear, make the decision, just 2 or 3 seconds. We know it's not a foul. We know it's a foul. We know it's a handball. We know it's not. But the issue is that the rules are so tight and the margins are so small nowadays. No one really knows. So it takes so much time. So I think a revisit to the rules would be important for football. That things like some of the decisions we see, and I see why fans are outraged by it. But what I don't understand is the anger goes towards VAR, like G was saying. That's not the issue. The rules are the issue. If someone points like this for a through ball and their armpit is offside, whether you like it or not, they're offside in the current rules, and the decision has to be made. You can't just go, benefit of the doubt. That's not the rules. Now, if they changed it and we're like, if there's a certain body part now that you can go from, or they give attackers the benefit of the doubt, if there's a certain, say for example, a certain margin that they limit for VAR, then that's no problem. Everyone's on the same page. With the current rules, they didn't update them, apart from the handball ones, as far as I'm aware, to keep up with the technology. Now the technology is exposing the rules, and they must revisit it.
On that, if you want to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker, I heard someone say about making the offside rule so that all of your body has to be offside. So if you think about that, if you're like making a run, your foot is probably going to be the last thing that's going to cross that kind of last defensive line. So the argument will be, well, if that's just in line, you're still onside because you can score with your foot, obviously. And then when that crosses over that line, you're offside because you're fully over the line. Now that, if you want to look at it from an attacking point of view, that would add a lot more goals and whatnot. The only thing, a real issue I have with VAR is when it's a subjective call. So I don't know, like me and Morgan always have debates on handball ones that I don't think are handballs and he thinks they are. And let's say we're both reffing. The rule, let's say, isn't going to help the really grey area subjective calls. It's between what I deem it to be and what Morgan deems it to be if we're the ref or whatnot. So, and then my issue is if I'm the one reffing on the game in the game, and Morgan's in wherever the VAR place is, Stanley Park or something like that, and he tells me what he thinks it is, and I just make my decision off what he thinks. But if I go and actually look at the screen, which they're starting to do a lot more of now, they didn't at the start, which I found ridiculous. I have no problem if the ref goes to the screen on the pitch, looks at it and goes, yeah, I still think I'm right, and then they make the decision, because at least I know they've checked the decision and they deem it right in their interpretation of a grey area rule. Not offsides. Offsides, like Morgan said, if their armpit's offside, they're offside now. That's just the rules. That's not VAR's fault. But these like subjective, is there enough contact made on a tackle, things like that. I think the refs should just use that sideline monitor if they're unsure and make the decision off that, because they're the one in the game, in the environment, in the atmosphere when there's fans and all back. And they'll make the decision off their own. I've no problem with that. Once a ref has seen it again and they'll go, right, well, maybe I was probably wrong there, and they'll overturn themselves, especially on them grey area calls, you know?
So is your debate then more so, like, I think me and Morgan are kind of on the lines of the rules have to be way more strict. Like, there shouldn't be debate. Whereas I think you're kind of going more for the human aspect there in regards to making their own decisions. So I think once, to be honest with you, Gary, I would actually agree with that. If that was the general case. Like, if that was the case where people knew that the referee had the final call, I know they always do, but I mean, like, they had the final interpretation of the call because they're the expert at the end of the day, well then fine, I would agree with that. But that's not the case. It's sometimes it's the referee's decision. Like, sometimes it's their feeling or their gut experience. Sometimes they go by a different voice. Sometimes it's this rule. Sometimes it's that rule. And that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Freaks me out.
I think
because then,
oh, sorry, you keep going.
Because then, for example, like, one team gets done for something, then another team gets done for another thing, and then another team escapes it for some miraculous reason. And then you're like, here. Like, it honestly loses my interest in games. Freaks me out.
The World Cup was very good for it, I found. I thought it was deadly for the drama and all of it. Did they do anything different than that, though?
I don't think so. Now, see, I'm so out of date with all the rules. There's so much things changing or not changing that I don't know what to listen to anymore. Yeah. I'm just not seeing it enough. So, but yeah, the World Cup seemed to implement it quite efficiently. But the thing was, it was consistent. Consistency is the main thing with anything. Just be a consistent rule maker or decision maker. Like exactly what I was talking about at the start. It's a foul for Sheffield United, but it's not a foul for United. Like, what? Why? It's the same thing. It's the same principle. Now, I know some of them could be subjective, but they haven't allowed VAR to make the decision. That was my issue with it. They allowed them to make it with the first one, and they deemed it not a foul. And then they didn't allow the second one, and they deemed it a foul. It's just inconsistency kills. It's killing the game at the moment. Now, I think we all agree that we're all advocates for VAR itself. We think the technology is good. It's necessary in the day and age, but either the decision makers are at fault, the rules are at fault, but there's too many inconsistencies and gray areas, and it's not being efficiently implemented. Now, like every new technology and every new thing, every bit of change, it takes time. It's probably the best thing that's ever happened that there's no fans or anything for refs, so they can make all these mistakes without getting absolute backlash apart from the media and social media. But it needs massive changes.
Actually, new one, Morgan, for you with the handball rule. I think they've changed it so that if I lunge to block and it hits my knee and goes onto my hand, I don't think that's a handball anymore. Because didn't like Southampton get away with that against Villa like 2 weeks ago? And apparently that was because the rule has changed, that's not, if it just hits my arm, it's because I've extended my body. But if it hits my leg onto my arm, it's not my fault now. So there you go, defenders. If that's the new rule, just throw your arms up when you're lunging and let it flick on.
It's handball. So I have in my notes, right? Very simple. It's offsides. Rules have been exposed, right? And I have handballs subjective because I have no idea what to think anymore. Well, if it hits his hand could be out here. Clearly a handball, and they're like, no. It's in its normal silhouette, and they don't give them. And then someone has it by their side, and it clips it, and they give it. It's so inconsistent. Now, I'm a big believer in, regardless of how close they are, if they're in the box and their arm is outside the silhouette like this, and it clips it, and it stops a goal-scoring opportunity where it's a cross or a shot, it's a penalty. Because it's just wrong. I know it can be debated a lot of the time, and that's the problem with subjecting this, but I think then it's clear. Well, a lot of refs would give the defender the benefit of the doubt and not give it. So again, it's just the ruling. I think the ruling needs to be changed. Again, it has to be readapted. But yeah, it's very frustrating. Handballs are probably the biggest issue. That I have no problem with offsides this year because like I said, you're offside. You're offside. Like there's no debate. There's no debate. It's you're offside or you're not. It's not like, oh, but his toe was. You're offside. That's how it is. Well, handballs are more of a debate. And then there's like fouls themselves. Have you found anything to do with like actual tackles that have been a little bit dodgy this year? So, for example, the Luke Shaw one, and then I know you maybe you didn't see it, but the Andy Robertson one on Danny Welbeck, that was a penalty. And there's been obviously lots of others. The one on Cavani there the other day, I'm only saying United because it's the games I watch the most, where he got fouled, it was given as a penalty, but the rule was if he was on the line or not for the penalty and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, the Luke Shaw one. Well, who was that against? It was Burnley, wasn't it? Because then Robbie Brady had like a last man tackle that, and that all got reverted. Like again, like what's like I, for example, could have seen Luke Shaw's being red card, but I know you didn't think it was a red card, so that's subjective. But it's based on the rules of the categories they have for red cards with tackles. It's like if it's lead with your studs 2-foot, I think don't you have to have like 2 of the categories or something like that, or if it's dangerous intent. But again, they're subjective ones. So in that game, the ref did go and look at the screen. I'm fairly sure, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I have no real issue. But then the weird thing is, he only booked Luke Shaw, didn't he? He didn't send them off.
He gave me yellow.
Yeah.
It was for the foul originally. So yeah. we obviously I think we went through on goal, and it was either given as Robbie Brady took him out before the box. So it would have been a red card for Robbie Brady and a good chance for United, but the foul had happened earlier. Now, my issue with the foul itself, and I've seen it happen a lot of times, is where someone tackles and then they're expected to just stop and not make any further contact. I think that's nonsense. As long as you make contact on the ball, obviously if it's very high and you come up and down, I think those fouls, they're just nasty. But I think, just for example, now we're talking about Luke Shaw's one, I didn't see anything wrong with that foul because it's not a foul. He nicks the ball first. Any contact on the ball for me and then a follow through, I think it's extremely harsh. But then again, that's subjective. So that's just another debate of many.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've got 3 minutes left on this.
Yeah.
Will we wrap up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. G, you gonna leave?
Yeah. I'm just frustrated thinking of all these subjective decisions. Honestly, just listening there to Morgan. Where are you going? Was this planned?
It wasn't planned.
That wasn't planned. I just seen him get up, so I was gone.
I thought you had like a different text chain or something.
Text chain?
Like you were texting each other. I don't know, texting each other saying like, "Oh, let's leave on Gary because he left earlier." These are gas.
Sorry, continue your thought.
Anyway,
you're frustrated about VAR.
That's my final thought, Gary. If I'm being honest, I just want subjectivity to be erased, human error erased. Obviously, you're going to be there, but like, actually, no. I'm going to retract that statement. If there's going to be human error, there should only be human error, and people should just suck it up and let the game be. If it's going to be, people are hemming and hawing between that shouldn't be that, that shouldn't be that. The referee should make a decision. VAR should make the decision. To be honest with you, though, with any adaptation to new technology is going to take time. So, again, these lads on their couches saying this, that, and the other about VAR, like, have a day off, man. You've no idea what's going on there. Just ride the wave, enjoy the football. Honestly,
that's the point. They can't enjoy it because of the calls.
Like, what's Fred on his couch going to do? Trying to change the rules of VAR on Twitter? Like, honestly, man,
Brazilian.
Just let it be. He was playing very well.
It's going to take a lot of time, or maybe after this year, I hope they change it. But technology isn't the issue. Human error is the issue. Rules are the issue.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll wrap it up then. We've less than a minute. So hopefully this doesn't cut. Thanks for watching. Well, podcast, a little bit different than usual. Other than that, let us know any ideas you might have for the podcast. Again, always like, share if you can, because it obviously helps the podcast do well. And other than that, boys, we good?
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, good, man. Thanks for watching. Yeah.
Get up and walk away.
Thank you.